Welcome to Lead Brightly, real conversations about the relationship between confidence and leadership success and what it really takes to lead with the courage and the clarity that inspires other people to follow. It's a real pleasure to be joined today by the amazing Andrea Pacini, who is a presentation coach. You've been my presentation coach, and you're the head of Ideas on Stage UK, which is all about helping leaders turn good ideas into clear, compelling messages that actually land. Now, Andrea's worked with huge organizations, including Microsoft, Spotify, eBay, coached over 500 TEDx speakers, 500, it's a lot, and was named Best Virtual Speaker at the Speaker Awards. He's on a mission to stop great ideas being lost through unclear communication. We've also got a double author here. So the first book, Confident Presenter, which I've read cover to cover, it's brilliant. And your second book, which is out on the 28th? 27th of May, which is, I've also started reading. I've had the pleasure of a pre-read on this. Timeless Presenter, Principles for Making Your Ideas Impossible to Ignore. It's brilliant, gold mine of ideas and tips that anyone can read. If you want to present effectively, you really need to buy this book. And I know firsthand how good you are, and I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to have you on the show to talk about all things confidence, presentation related. And I know you're going to add some really fabulous tips for all of the listeners to be able to go off and use immediately. So thank you. Welcome to Lead Brightly.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for inviting me. You are always too kind with me. And with this introduction, you've raised the expectations so high. Let's see what I can do now.
You always put yourself down. We need to talk about this. A bit of an imposters in there, maybe. Let's talk about confidence, actually. And I haven't overrated you at all. You are amazing. But people will see you now, and I watch you presenting, and people see you as this confident communicator now. Has it always been like that, or is this something that you've had to work on over the years yourself?
It's definitely something I had to work on for many years. On the one hand, Sarah, it's not that at the very beginning I struggled so much with things like nerves and anxiety. No, although they were always there and they're still present. I've been given maybe more than 1,000 presentations so far, and or even today I always still feel nervous, which is part of the game. It's not about overcoming the nerves, it's about learning how to deal with them in a more constructive way, and we can talk about it later. But for me, the key is preparation. It's not that I'm particularly good at speaking in public, it's just that I prepare a lot. And I think I can say that I prepare much more than what most business professionals and business leaders do. I'll give you an example. I watched a video of Kobe Bryant, NBA star. He passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. And it wasn't him playing, it was an interview. And one question was, Kobe, how is it possible that every time I see you playing, you always look so confident? And he said, the only reason why you think I'm confident is because when you see me doing certain things, I've done those things 1,000 times before. Many people think that confidence at least I can talk about confidence in speaking, presenting.
Sure.
Many people think that confidence comes from either your performance skills, your delivery skills, your eye contact and body language and gestures, all these kind of things, or it comes from wishful thinking. It just comes from preparation. Your journey to becoming the best presenter you can be is a journey of 1,000 presentations.
Absolutely. I think people hope that there's a quick fix to this, and people will often say to me, well, how do I stop feeling nervous before a presentation? And actually, it wasn't until I went to your recent session with the amazing man whose name has just gone out of my head.
Terry Zupler.
That amazing. So Terry was the writer for Barack Obama. So inspiring. And I asked him afterwards, what do you do for nerves? Because I still get nervous, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, until he said, well, first of all, you probably should get nervous for a start. So embrace it, but use the energy for something. And very recently, I've just been on to BBC Radio 2, which is the biggest thing I've ever done. And I was utterly terrified. And I just had him in my head. And I was literally dancing around outside the studio, arms in the air, jumping around, going, this is how we get rid of our nerves. And it worked a treat. So instead of being scared of the nerves and worrying about them, which is, I guess, what people with imposter syndrome or low levels of self-belief might be more likely to do, get absorbed by them, I used it. And I went in there and kind of smashed it. I did a good enough job. I could have done a few things better, but that's me being a perfectionist. So, yeah, that was a great tip. And without preparing, without feeling confident in what you know, you're always going to feel uncomfortable and more nervous and more likely to mess up. Do you think?
And that's the key, Sarah. And well done for the BBC
Thank
thing.
you.
Now, that's the key. Again, going back to what we said earlier, many people expect public speaking to be and to feel comfortable. Presenting, speaking in public is, first of all, is not, we need to accept the fact that it's not a comfortable thing to do. And also, it's not meant to be comfortable. So the objective shouldn't be to overcome what's uncomfortable or to overcome the nerves and the anxiety that go with it. Because again, I told you, more than 1,000 presentations so far. When you saw me, for example, introducing Terry, I was nervous there. It's part of the process. The objective should not be to overcome the nerves, because that's not possible. Mark Twain apparently said that there are only two types of speakers: those who are nervous and those who are liars. So we always feel something. We should not aim to overcome the nerves. We should try and channel them in a more constructive, in a more positive way. And there are practical things we can do. But again, the best way to deal with nerves is to know what you're talking about. And the best way to know what you're talking about is to be prepared, to rehearse, which is what many people still don't do, or don't do as much as they should.
Yeah. And what do you think stops people from preparing? So we started this conversation and I was kind of going down the line of people hope that there's this sort of a magic button they can press that goes nerves on and off. We know that practice is important if we want to show up comfortably to other people, and that's what it's the most important thing about the presentation is we need to be comfortable enough so that others can learn and listen to us. We don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. So what do you think stops people from preparing as well as they should do or could do?
I'm sure there are a number of reasons. One in particular is, I think there's a bit of a misconception. People, especially people who tend to be good speakers, good presenters, they think that because they are naturally good, they don't need to prepare, because in the end they've done it many times before, they can wing it, more or less it goes relatively well. But what we need to understand is that people don't practice because they are bad. People practice because they are good. Good speakers keep practicing because they want to keep being good. Great speakers still keep practicing because they want to keep being great. And that's what we need to understand. If you think about rehearsing in particular, which is another layer of preparation. Rehearsing means, for example, repeating your presentation several times out loud, knowing your head from the very beginning to the very end without stopping, if possible in real world conditions, as if you have an actual audience in front of you. That's the kind of preparation, several times. That's the kind of preparation that we need to have. Now, many people, going back to your question, many people don't do that because they think that if they do that, then they sound robotic. And they say they want to be authentic, they want to be themselves, they want to appear natural. And that's not how it works. Rehearsing is a bit like climbing a mountain. If you think about climbing a mountain, you start going up, you start climbing. If you do that and then you stop, you will never get to the top of the mountain. So what do we need to do? We need to keep climbing so that we reach the top and then we can start going down. Rehearsing is very similar. If say, for example, Sarah, you have an important presentation coming up and you rehearse once and then you stop, yes, you will appear robotic. But when you appear robotic, it's not because you have rehearsed, and that's another misconception. It's because you haven't done it enough.
Oh, I completely agree.
You need
Yeah.
to keep climbing. And
Yeah.
that means that you need to keep preparing. You need to prepare a little bit more. You need to keep rehearsing so that you reach the top and then you can start going down.
So you taught me last year how to prepare properly, and you said at least 10 times before the presentation. And I've stuck to that, and I get really nervous now if I run out of days. I'm thinking, well, that was my fault. So one of the biggest reasons people don't practice, they forget how much time it takes, but also they tell themselves they haven't got time to practice. I've done that as well. But it's a bit of a you're wasting time that you're going to spend then worrying about not being prepared enough and fluffing it up, and then you do sound slightly odd when you're doing your presentation because you're almost looking for the words because they're not flowing properly. Can you over prepare? Because I think I've almost gone the other way now, and I'm boring myself. I'm starting boring myself and thinking, oh God, and then tweaking it. And I do think, is this over preparing because of imposter syndrome, or is this what people do? Is there any advice you can give, I suppose, to know when enough is enough?
Mm. From a communication perspective, yes, I'm sure that there is a risk preparing too much, although in 99.9999% of cases, the risk is the opposite, that we don't prepare enough. I also, because you said I tend to prepare a lot and it feels boring, sometimes my advice is, how many times should you rehearse? Now, you gave 10 it is true. If we think about also myself and our clients, for us to be able to internalize a message, you don't have to memorize it, but you do need to internalize it. You need to own your content. To get to that point, to get to the top of the mountain, for most people, we need to rehearse around 10 times, more or less. Now, can you over prepare? In addition to the 10 times rule, I also suggest that people rehearse until they feel bored. So
So maybe I just reached that sooner.
yeah. So if you rehearse enough times and then one more rehearsal and it starts to become a bit boring for you, not for the audience, of course it's for you, then you are prepared. And we need to distinguish between preparation in terms of developing your message and then preparation from a delivery perspective. So yes, you need to get to a point where you need to prepare well from a message perspective, because what you say is the most important thing, not how you say it is also important, but you can use your delivery skills to amplify your message, to amplify what you say. And ideally, for example, I always want to get to a point where roughly 10 days, 10 days before the actual talk, the message is ready, finalized 100%, and I never tweak. Maybe before I tweak it.
Don't tweak it anymore.
Yeah, that's it. And then it's just preparation from that point onwards. It's just about rehearsing, but you don't change the content.
What I tend to do, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, is because I've got a little bit bored, but I'm also I've got you in my head going, but you've got to rehearse it 10 times, Sarah. And I don't usually listen to anybody, so I don't know how you've managed that. Well done. Usually I'm completely anti what I'm told to do. It's just the way my brain works. But what I've started to do is I will take my sections of it, and as I'm walking the dog, I will just talk it through out loud to myself. Don't care if anyone's listening. And then I might do the end bit. And what I try and do is not do it all in the same order, so I can do it back to front, upside down, inside out. It keeps me more entertained, and it also means I'm really sharp if I need to change something or if something happened.
It gives you flexibility. Yeah,
that's a good
approach. And also that's another great approach, if you can, because that's also another thing that you can consider for yourself. If you want to know, am I prepared or not? If you can deliver your message, if you can get your message across, if you remember what you say while doing something else, while walking your dog, for example, it means that you are prepared. And if you get to that, because we say, I recommend rehearsing roughly 10 times. Now, some people may need a little bit less. Some people may need a little bit more. If you are one of those who rehearse 5 times And at the fifth time, for example, you remember everything, you can do it while doing something else, then maybe 5 times is
You've
enough
got
for you.
it. Yeah. Okay. So it's a bit of sort of, just do what feels right, and not be. I guess what's interesting for me is that I'm pretty. All right. I have been affected by imposter syndrome all my life, but I'm still the thing that really gets me more than anything is when I have to present, not when I'm on screen at all. I've got so used to that. But when I'm actually in front of real human beings now who can see me, I can see them full body. That's when it suddenly feels huge. And I wonder if other people feel a bit like that as well, because we're so used now from COVID doing it like this on screen that it's just change again, isn't it? It's just something different that triggers that fear response. But again, if we practice and we imagine ourselves in there with real humans, then
it won't help you overcome the nerves, but yes, it will help you a lot in dealing with them in a more positive way. Now, because you mentioned, and of course your expertise is around imposter syndrome, and by the way, what you said, this is like for evolutionary reasons. If you look at how our brain works, again, it's not that you are different or you find it more challenging than others. This is something that most people face.
yeah.
A brain, including my brain as a presentation coach, my brain, your brain, Sarah, our brain, everyone finds it very hard to distinguish between a group of people looking at us when we speak in public and a tiger attacking us. That's how our brain has evolved.
Yeah,
So
it's a threat response but our brains haven't updated. Our iOS needs an update, doesn't it? It hasn't updated to go, these are humans, not saber-toothed tigers or woolly mammoths running towards us.
Yeah. And most likely, I don't know, but most likely, looking at the time frame, it will never happen. That our brain will update itself.
Well, I think this is the bit that I work on, is that's what I do with myself and I do with my clients as well, is that we update the iOS. But it's a conscious, active process, and you have to catch yourself in the moment to do it. It isn't something that's going to be automatic, because our brain chemistry is being changed, and we could go down a whole rabbit warren here when you look at kids and mobile phone usage and the size of their brain shrinking, but we won't go there for now. It is just, it's a normal thing. And like when I'm talking to people about building their confidence or any skill, actually, when they realize they're not alone, that they're not the only ones feeling that way, that in itself makes you feel better and calmer about the whole thing.
Yeah, because you said, for example, that you said to Terry that you were a bit embarrassed to tell him, look, I feel nervous before presenting. Again, I'm a presentation coach. I should also feel embarrassed. I don't feel it. I always feel nervous before present. When I don't know whether, please feel free to tell me. At the event with Terry Zuplet, I was hosting the event. I was doing the questions, also the introduction, the conclusion. I was feeling very nervous before the presentation, and again, it's part of it. When you mentioned imposter syndrome, have you ever seen by any chance, Sarah, the Greatest Night in Pop, the Netflix documentary?
No.
Okay, you might want to check it out. It's a documentary. It tells the story of how We Are the World, the famous song We Are the World, how it was recorded. And you've got artists like Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, Bruce Springsteen,
all the big names,
Bob Dylan, Stevie Wonder. Now you can see in the documentary that at some point Bob Dylan admitted feeling out of place among all the other legends. We are talking about Bob Dylan. We're not talking about the latest pop singer coming out of a TV show that you hear a few songs and then you forget them. Bob Dylan admitted feeling out of place among all the others. And this is to say that we need to accept the fact that it doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do about it.
No, absolutely not. No.
There are many things we can do about it. People like you help business professionals and leaders deal with those feelings in a more positive way. There are many things you should do about it, but the starting point, as you said,
it's normal. It happens. It's common. But common doesn't necessarily mean that it's harmless, and that there's something that you couldn't or shouldn't be doing about it. So if we think about, because you work with leaders as well, what do you find is the sort of the number one thing that they get wrong when it comes to presenting? And do you see what impact this has on their credibility? Because that's the angle that I look at. But I wonder if you can see it, how it relates. If they get this wrong, you can then see how others are looking at them and maybe likely to feel about them, trust them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. One of the main mistakes, and here we get into the practical, the technical elements of communicating effectively, is not making our communication about them, about the audience. It has to be, what you say has to be relevant to them. The key to great communication, great presenting, is to always talk to them, to your audience, about them, even if you're talking about you. Often what we do is we talk at them about us, about our ideas, our products or services. Our projects, you want to talk to them about them, even if you're talking about you. I remember one of our clients, an HR manager, once told me, look, we've got this challenge. In our company, we go through monthly presentations. These are internal presentations, business updates, and our employees they have to sit through those monthly presentations. But we know they really don't want to be there. What can we do about it? Yeah. Now, if for a moment we put ourselves in the shoes of the speakers, now can the speakers answer the why should they care question? What's in it for them? Because if you can't do that, as a communicator, if you can't clarify for the audience why they should care about your particular idea or project, whatever it is that you want to communicate, why is it important to them? Why should they care about it? Why is this relevant to them? If you can't do that, then probably
don't do it.
Yeah. And if they don't want to if they don't want to attend your presentation, then they have a point. Probably they have a point.
Yeah, and this is the same for presentations, for team meetings, for all sorts of things. I talk about, like you, it's what's in it for them. So what's the objective? What's the plan? And what's the outcome? What are they going to get out of it? And if you can't answer that, don't do it. Because a lot of the time, leaders especially are told you must present quarterly, you must present monthly, or they think they should. They think that's the best way to relay information. And actually often it's the worst way. You know, it could be that they do a recording and then send it out and people want to listen to it. But even that, if there is no why you should listen to this, how it's going to benefit you, I recommend not doing it. Don't have the meeting. Don't do the presentation.
Look, this is connected to another thing, and I agree with you. Now, as I was doing some research for my new book, I came across this article from The Economist where talking about Shopify, that Shopify recently removed 12,000 meetings from their calendars, and just to cut it short, as a result, productivity improved. Now, often we think that if we want to do better, we need to do more. Even if we applied, especially if we applied in this world of presenting, communication, public speaking, of course, if for every single thing you want to communicate, if you always associate there with the act of giving an oral presentation, if you need to give 5 presentations per week, of course, we were talking about not having the time to prepare. Of course, you will not have the time to prepare.
No.
But if you also use other forms of communication that can also be much more effective than oral presentations, depending on what the objective is, especially if the objective is just to share some information, then give them a document, give them a coffee, give them some time so that they can...
Why stand up and just relay a conversation that you could be having? That to me is just a broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you use oral presentations, and that could be in person or online, just for those very important moments where you have an objective that goes beyond just sharing some information. You want to build trust. You want to build connection with the audience. You want them to do something. You want to persuade them. You want to motivate them to do something. You want to act. You want them to act on your ideas. Then if you have fewer moments like this, then you will also have more time to prepare well, connecting it to what we said earlier.
Yeah, it's a really good point. As you were talking, I was just writing some stuff down here about this. I wonder, when we look at, so when I'm talking to my clients about what's the purpose of this and what's the benefit to you and to them, they often get stuck. And often what they're stuck on is the confidence or the clarity to say what the real outcome is, because the outcome may be something that isn't very pleasant. Like, I might need you to do more. We might be going down a difficult path. So I don't know if you see that as well, when the message could be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. I wonder if you see people struggling to make it an effective conversation with people.
100%. And also this connects to the second part of your question before the impact. How do they feel
Oh
about
yeah, I
it?
forgot I asked you
Yeah.
that as well.
No. Yeah, because in the end, the impact is that whether we like it or not, you can have the greatest idea in the world. And when I say an idea, it could be anything. It could be a project, it could be a product, a service, a process that you need to implement, that you want to implement within a certain organization. Whatever that is, you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you can't communicate it, it doesn't matter. And you will, there's a very tangible, there's both a tangible impact in that you will not be able to achieve the outcomes, the personal, professional outcomes, but also, of course, your psychological, emotional well-being, if we can call it this way, will be affected too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're thinking about leaders at all levels, the people that they want to follow them, to inspire, they're looking up at them. And if they feel the discomfort in that leader, it causes discomfort in their brain because of mirror neurons, clever little things. We won't go into the neuroscience of it, but it really impacts how they feel. So they start to feel nervous, and then they can't connect. And this does then leak out into the rest of what happens, outside of that presentation, working with them, how much you trust them, how much you'll listen to them, because they start to question you. So, all these things that you're talking about, being prepared, it's all leading to looking like, as much as possible, that you believe in what you're saying, that it has value, and you're going to do it in a way that people can listen to. That's going to build trust. And where we have trust, we're going to have better relationships and more following, better leadership. It all links in really nicely.
You mentioned believing in what you're saying. It makes me think of, we often talk about the importance of being passionate about whatever it is that you do, because if you're not passionate about it, it's very unlikely that the people around you will be passionate about it for you. And I remember when I was at university in Italy, Sarah, I had a professor, great professor, and I remember we were listening to this professor, and he started sharing like a weird hobby of his. I don't remember what the hobby was, but everyone started laughing. And he said, well, folks, everybody needs to love something. And I can promise you, Sarah, I remember almost nothing from a content perspective from my university days. But I still remember that quote. I just stopped.
Stuck with you.
Everybody needs to love something. And if we think about what we've been talking about here, from a public speaking perspective, the best presentations are powered by love for an idea, for a project, for a mission, for a product, for a service, for
change,
for the audience, for the idea of, okay, I can help this audience, and so I want to communicate effectively because I know I can help, I can serve them. And so if you're not passionate about your topic, if you don't care about it, you can't expect the audience to care about it for you. Now, having said that, some time ago I read a book by the Heath brothers, the Power of Moments. Now, the Heath brothers are very famous for Made to Stick. That's probably their most famous book, which is a great book especially for business leaders who want to make their ideas stick. So it's very relevant to communication. This one is different. The Power of Moments. And in that book, they say that purpose is an even better predictor than passion for success. I don't like the word success, but if we want to achieve
Yeah. Whatever that means.
whatever that
Yeah,
means, yes.
yeah.
Now, it made me think that for me, for example, when I read that, I thought, okay, my purpose is actually what you said when you introduced me, that I see so many great ideas that fail, not because of the ideas themselves, but just because of the way they are communicated. And for me, this is tragic, especially if we're talking about ideas that have the power to change the world. Now, when I say changing the world, I'm not talking, it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. It could be, but it could be just your own little world.
Your own little dent in the
Yeah,
universe, as Steve Jobs
yeah.
famously said, he was going to put a dent in the universe. I like that. It doesn't have to be huge, but just a little dent. You leave your mark.
Your own little mark. Now, if you have an idea and that idea and people don't remember it, people don't accept it, people don't embrace it, people don't act on it, not because of the idea itself is great, but just because of the way you communicate it, for me that's a tragedy, and I want to change that. That's my purpose. Now, if you have a clear purpose, then talking about it for 10 years, for 20 years, or even doing repetitive things that are required to make that purpose, to make it real, going through the ups and downs because it's part of the professional journey, won't feel like it won't feel like something that you have to do, but you really don't want. It will feel like a necessity. So passion, yeah, we need to believe in what we say.
Purpose is big.
Purpose, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's so many things. There's so many things to think about. And people will often say, "Well, what's the first thing? What's the first thing?" For me, and you may think differently to this, but for me, the first thing is believe that it matters, but also believe that you matter. The amount of times I've heard people say, "My gosh, you're so brave to go and stand on stage and do this thing and do that," and my answer is, "I'm not. I want to go and help one person today." That's it. That's all I ever focus on, one person. Stop making it about you. Start making it about them, which is what you said much earlier on in this conversation. It's got to be about them. And then you don't sit there worrying about, well, am I wearing the right clothes? Are my shoes right? Or, is this right, that right? What are they thinking about what I'm saying? You're actually thinking about serving somebody. That is a purpose. And it's a strong, compelling thing to have when it's underpinned by self-belief.
And also, I love that you said sometimes it could be just one person. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V says one is better than zero.
Yeah, I always go for one. Yeah. Always one. I mean, I aim for 100, but I mean, one is enough. That's a success, right? Yeah. Because I was one of those people once, and someone helped change me, and that changed my life. So that's what drives me. Is what if I could change someone else's life? And I believe that I can. I believe that I do, and I trust myself to do it now. So I need to talk about it, right? But that's where you came in to help me. There was a lot of words, but let's put them in an order that actually flow and actually hits the brain. And this is where your speciality comes in. And yeah, absolutely, highly recommend people connecting with you and talking to you about this. Got a few final questions for you. People often really overcomplicate, and I know I was one of those people, overcomplicate, overpopulate their presentations. Why are they doing that? What do you think the main reason is for overpopulating or giving too much in a presentation?
Part of it is that we live in a business culture where we've always done it in a certain way. So it takes a bit of courage to be different. It takes a bit of courage to stand out from that perspective. And although the other reason is that often we are talking about experts, business professionals, business leaders. Often we know so much about a subject, and we are also so close to it that we genuinely think that everything is important.
Yeah, well, it feels it. And I remember saying that to you, but I must talk about this and I must talk about that. But actually, honestly, not only did I think it was important, I'm going to be really honest with you here. My biggest fear was that if I don't say that, are people going to take me as credible? will I be as credible if I don't talk for 10 minutes at least about neuroscience? And you did such a good job of going, that's not what they're there for. That doesn't make them feel any better. And you really helped me unpick all of that. And I still, to this day, whatever I'm doing, I have you again in my head going, really? Do they need to know that? Or is that you just going, look, I really know my thing. So everybody like me and trust me. There's a bit of that going on, I think, or hopefully not just with me. Hopefully you see that in others as well.
It is one of the biggest challenges. And one of the main benefits of working with a coach, and this is, of course, I'm a public speaking coach. You do your coaching with imposter syndrome and your area of expertise. But I can talk about from my perspective, what we can give our clients is ignorance. Because, for example, when we worked together, Sarah, I knew very little about imposter syndrome. You were the expert. But precisely because I know very little about imposter syndrome in your particular case, then it's easier for me to try and put myself in the audience's shoes.
That makes so much sense.
Which is what we need, which is what a speaker needs. Whereas because you are an expert, of course you think that talking about for 10 minutes of neuroscience things, then of course for you...
so boring for them.
But so that's something to consider. And also, when it comes to including too much, the mark of a great presenter is determined by the choices we make. Choices not just in terms of what we choose to include, but especially what we choose not to include, which is much harder. You mentioned Terry Zuplat earlier. He didn't tell this story, but I interviewed him on the Ideas on Stage podcast, and he told me this story. It was him on the presidential plane with Obama, and they were about to land in Chile. And as soon as they landed, Obama was supposed to give a public speech, foreign policy, something very important. They had been working on that speech for weeks before the event, and Terry was happy with it. And then 1 hour before landing, Obama goes to Terry on the plane and he says, Terry, this is a good 6-page speech. And Terry smiled, was happy, proud of himself. And Obama said, but it would be a great 5-page speech. Oh. Can you try and shave 1 page off? And of course, he didn't tell him because you can't tell the president. But he thought, come on, we've been working on this for weeks. We just have an hour.
1 hour.
1 hour. The plane was shaking, was landing. Oh. But in the end, he had to find something to cut. And he said, of course, as a result, it wasn't easy for him, but the result was a much better speech, tighter, more concise, simpler, more effective. He now calls it the 15% rule, because if you do the math, 6 pages, 5 pages, you cut 15%. And he always encourages people to cut 15% off.
That's really, really interesting. Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to cut. Stephen King, in a similar way, in his book On Writing, he says that a piece of advice he got early in his career was that your second draft should be your first draft minus 10%. So it's similar. It's either 15%, 10%. I'll give you, if that's okay, Sarah, I'll give you one final example. Derek Sivers, I don't know if you know him, famous entrepreneur. He's very unconventional. He's always been a very unconventional entrepreneur. He gave 3 TED Talks, and all of them are less than 3 minutes. And he was his choice. Now, if you think about it, if you're given the opportunity to give a TED Talk, I'm not talking about a TEDx talk, the actual TED Talk.
Proper TED.
Yeah. Now, many people panic for many reasons.
It's actually making me feel quite physically ill at the thought. I've immediately gone into, how would I do that in 3 minutes? It feels like a challenge now. How would I actually do all of that in 3 minutes?
And if you think about it, one of the challenges is that with most TED Talks, the limit is 18 minutes. Which is already very
really
challenging.
True. Yeah.
Because we, again, from a business perspective, business culture, we have our calendar 1 hour, 30 minutes. These are the usual time slots.
That's what we're used to. It's impregnated into our brains that it should take that long. We have that amount.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, 18 minutes. Okay, how can I do that? How can I talk about all the neuroscientific things in this career? I just have 18 minutes. Now, he chose deliberately to just say something in 3 minutes. And here is the thing. If you look, you published your book with Rethink Press. Now, Lucy McCarrahan, the co-founder of Rethink Press, in her book, Book Builder, there's a chapter I loved. The title of the chapter is Be Kind to Your Readers. And in the same way, we should be kind to our audience. She says in that chapter that, for example, one way to be kind to your audience, to your readers, is that if you can say something in a couple of sentences, if you can say the same thing in 12 sentences, most likely the 2-sentence version is going to be better in communication. Same way for direct receivers. You can say something in 3 minutes. Yes, of course, you could say in 10 minutes, but if you can say in 3,
even better. And people are more likely to remember it. And the fact that he did it in 3 again is a showstopper, isn't it? Yeah, for someone who is naturally incredibly verbose, I would find that a big challenge. I'm feeling the need to start thinking about getting some TEDx training from you as a result of this conversation. It's been on my mind for 10 years. I want to do it in 2 minutes now. But okay, final question for you today before I ask you to leave us with just a few of your top tips. I know we've had loads from you already, but if we can squeeze some more out of you, that'd be great. I wanted to just get your thoughts on AI because it is taking over the world. We don't even need to say our own words anymore. We can create an avatar of ourselves, share this perfect story delivered behind dead eyes. And actually, just before I ask you the question, I saw someone who I know who is German, who has done this, and the avatar is speaking in perfect English. So I immediately have a disconnect because I know it's not real, because it's not his voice at all. It hasn't even attempted to copy his voice, maybe an occasional word. But my theory is if you then say, oh, I want to speak to this person, you go and speak to them, immediately you're thrown, your brain goes, oh, that's not what I was expecting. So I do not approve personally. I think everybody's doing it. I think it's really lazy. So with AI now doing our thinking, our writing and everything else, what are your thoughts on this? What's it going to make for people to understand the need for this human communication? And how do we stand out even more in a world where this perfection exists around us, which isn't even real? Yeah. What do we do?
Yeah. Here is how I look at it. It is true that AI can do a lot for us today, including for our communication. If this is true, then you could argue that there's never been a worse time to work on your communication skills, because in the end, I can use this AI tool who can do that for me. I like to look at it from the opposite angle, precisely because this is true. And precisely because AI can do so much for us, including for our communication. Mm-hmm. And precisely because everyone is doing it now, and everyone is relying 100% on AI for their communication. And to me, that's the key distinction. I'm not anti-AI. I'm not anti-technology.
No, me neither. But it's how much we're using it and what we're using it for.
Exactly. Because if you rely 100% on AI, again, because we're having this conversation that you attended the event with Terry Zuplat, he said that when you give a talk, you should give the talk that only you can give. You should tell the story that only you can tell. Now, then, of course, if you want to use AI to help you shape that story, that message in a more compelling way, great, go ahead, do it. I use AI for myself, for my communication with the clients, but you need to start from a story, a message, an idea, which is something that you want to share. It's yours. Yeah. So because of that, there's never been a better time to work on your communication skills, because you have a massive opportunity to stand out just for that reason. And also
with your story.
With your story. And when I say your story, it doesn't, like, for example, even my new book, it's a collection of
Timeless Presenter, just plugging. Timeless Presenter on the 27th of May.
And it's a collection of lots of short reflections that you can read in a minute. And
I love it, by the way. I love it. What I love about it is, someone who has a really short attention span, I started to read it like a proper book, and then I realized I was doing it wrong because there was too much to learn. So I had to keep stopping and then dipping back into it, and then just flicking to any page going, I'll learn that today. Because there's so much in there. It's crazy.
And that's the idea. It's a book that can be with you even for a year. It could be just one page per day if you want. And most reflections start with a story, and then there's a timeless communication principle behind. But I don't have original ideas. Most of the stories are things that I've read from other books, or I listen to podcasts. So of course it's totally fine to take other people's ideas and making them useful in your own context. But still, we're talking about your mental process. We're talking about your thinking, your ideas. And like we're talking about books. There's a fantastic book, Sapiens, by Harari. Many years ago, he published it. And in that book, he explains that the reason why, as humans, at some point we started to dominate the world is not because we had any particular skills that our predecessors didn't have. He says that the only reason is that at some point we started to collaborate with each other in large numbers. And the only way for us to be able to do that, to collaborate with each other in large numbers, is to communicate with each other.
And can I just add in that, collaborate effectively with each other? Because people will communicate effectively. For effective collaboration, the communication needs to be effective, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will do a lot of communicating and wondering why collaboration isn't happening.
Yeah. So communication is at the very core of what it means to be human. So again, I'm not anti-AI. I think we can use it. We should use it.
No, and if we don't, we'll get left behind. Yeah. But it's how we're using it.
As an assistant. I use it as an assistant. As an aid, you are the storyteller. It has to be your idea, your story, and then we use technology to amplify it.
Yeah, okay. And I think if we overuse it, the problem with that will be is that people will still want humans to come and talk to groups of humans at conferences, at events, and all sorts of things. And if we've only ever used our voice through AI and we've become an avatar, although it's our words, I get that. It's not that we've made up the words. Well, we have made up the words, but they're our words, our stories. You're going to miss that disconnect of being able to just happily go up and be able to stand up in front of a group of people. Because I already feel that, like I said right at the beginning, going from doing presentations to thousands of people on screen, don't bat an eyelid, put me in front of 20 people, all of a sudden, ridiculously nervous. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, listen, there's so many more questions I could ask you, but what I'd like to end with, you've given us so much already, but what's one thing that people could start doing to help them be better presenters, other than preparing?
Okay. Yeah. I could give you 1,000 things. You ask for one, I'll give you one, because it's the fastest way to become a better communicator. The fastest way to improve as a communicator is to raise the quality of your examples.
Examples and stories.
Yeah, stories, examples. I'll give you an example to illustrate this.
So you're going to lead by example.
I'll try.
And I just have to say, your memory, the stories you have in your head, literally every time I speak to you could tell me 10 more new ones. It's just like that. You must have like a file of facts in your brain that just goes picks out the one you want.
Again, Sarah, I don't think it's my memory. I think it's my preparation. Before this conversation, I thought about those things.
Okay.
So there's preparation also.
Well, let me just think you're magical. Please think that, please. Sorry, go on. I interrupted you. Tell me.
No. I like conversations like these. Now, Hans Rosling, he was he also my stories. Now I'm thinking about it. I always find people who passed away. But anyway, Hans Rosling, a statistician.
People that are alive now. Then come on, new ones.
He was a statistician, also very well known for how he presented data. Like fantastic data storyteller, and he also gave lots of TED Talks. One, the title is "The Magic Washing Machine." It's not even the most famous TED talk that he gave, but it's a short talk, again, I think 6-8 minutes, and he talks about global development. So that's the topic, global development. But he does it by telling a story, and it's the story of his mom getting a very first washing machine. And just to cut it short for our listeners, the story is that thanks to that washing machine, now his mom had more time to do other things, because before the washing machine she had to wash by hand. Now she has much more time, and she could use that time to read books to his son. Thanks to that, he became passionate about learning and reading.
Yeah.
Thanks to that, he became a professor, and also he became one of the most respected voices in the world in his field. All thanks, he says, to that washing machine. Now, of course, then he links that to the theme, the topic of the talk, which is global development, the impact of tools like this and technology on global development. Most people, though, would have approached that talk. At the beginning, we started by saying, including so much, lots of data, facts and figures, charts. He just told one story that makes a point. And storytelling is not about telling a story for the sake of it. We want to tell a story because it makes a point. And if you do that, your audience will remember the story, the example, and the point that you want to make. So, for our listeners, you can do that too. If you have an important message that you want to share, ask yourselves, is there a story that I can tell? Is there an example that I can give that illustrates that point? That's the most powerful thing you can do to improve as a communicator.
It has absolutely transformed my keynote. I have to say, I wasn't using stories at all till I worked with you, and it just makes it so much easier to remember, and it makes it more interesting. And the other one you taught me was about using analogies more. Again, love it. Why didn't I know that? I've even trained presentation skills in the past, but it was so basic. And what you do really takes it to another level. And my final question was going to be what makes someone truly memorable, and I wonder if that really links to the stories that you tell. Maybe it's the energy that you give off. Is it anything in particular, or is it a mixture of things?
One thing in particular, and this I give another example here. I don't know if you remember when we did KPI together.
Mm-hmm. So KPI, just for people listening, is Key Person of Influence program by Dent, which is also incredibly good.
Yeah. One of the people attending. Do you remember John Russo?
Oh yeah, John. Yeah.
Okay, John is the author of Liberate Your Greatness. I had him on the Ideas on Stage podcast, and he told me that he started karate when he was 6 years old, and he said at the beginning training was quite repetitive, boring. It was just punch. And he said he started with his friends. Most of his friends quit. He decided to continue. Now, to cut it short, today he can throw 6 punches per second, and he has a black belt in 6 styles of karate.
Good grief!
But he said it wasn't because he mastered so many tricks. It was because he mastered the punches. He did it so many times.
Basics over
and over again. Same is true in public speaking. He shared with me a quote by Bruce Lee. He said that I fear not the man who practice 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who practice one kick 10,000 times. And in communication, if you think about, like, even the book Timeless Presenter, what are the timeless? How many timeless principles do we have in communication? It's not 10,000. It's just a few. Do you have a message that's simple for the audience to understand? Is it clear for them to follow? Is it engaging? Is it relevant to them, the needs and the context? That's it. That's the equivalent of that one kick. Then, of course,
underneath that, have you got the confidence to do it? We're back to that. So, can you lead yourself through that presentation? Because that in itself is. You can't do it without that. But if you don't have the confidence to do it, everything you've just talked about falls flat. No?
And that confidence, this is my view. Now, if you do it once, if you give a presentation once, most likely you will not feel that confidence. If you do it twice, still you won't feel it. You do it 10 times, maybe just slightly better. You do it 100 times, you will see improvement. Do it
Yeah.
1,000 times. Do it 10,000 times. That's how you see. That's where you see the difference. Again, we can close with this because we said it at the very beginning. Your journey to becoming the best presenter, the best communicator you can be, is a journey of 1,000 presentations.
What a way to end. Andrea, thank you so much. We've got so many great tips. I'm personally going to keep this. Well, I'll keep it anyway, obviously, because it's my podcast. But so much that I've been reminded of, so much that I've learned. Thank you. You are the gift that keeps on giving. And please remember, if you're listening to this before the 27th of May, Timeless Presenter, you can get it beforehand. We'll drop the links into any posts that go out about this so you can pre-order or express your interest in it. And if it's after the 27th of May that you're watching this, go buy it. You'd be mad not to. Andrea, thank you. Thank you so much. I hope to have you on the podcast again soon.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you.